Good. Welcome to our other session on create an Angular application and deploy it to the Kubernetes. In the previous session, we have seen how to create a local cluster, Kubernetes cluster. So now my Docker engine is running and Kubernetes cluster also it's running state. So Kubernetes is enabled. So now let us create a Angular application and create pod. So how we will do it? Now open the Visual Studio Code which we have already installed. Go to the terminal. So go to the new terminal here. So here an option you will be having terminal. Click on the new terminal. So once the terminal will open, you can write the command to create a Angular application. So I'll copy the command from here. Ng new Angular. It's a command. So to before creation of this Angular application, so Node.js is got installed and also Angular CL also we have installed. So once it is installed Node.js and Angular CLI, you can create a Angular project with ng command ng new. So my Angular project Ketaki Angular app. So this is my project name ng new Ketaki Angular app. So this will be created under user and this folder and folder. So let us wait for some time. Let it create now. So here I am selecting the CSS. Which CSS you want to use? I will select the default CSS. Do you want to enable the server side rendering? Yes, SR. So I don't want to render any server side generation. I'll just say no. So the project is being created. So the project is getting created now. So it's installing the packages. So the packages installed successfully. That means project got created. Once you can open that folder directly from the Visual Studio Code. So in which path we have installed our project, that is under users folder. Open the folder, open folder button you can click. So here you can go to the C folder. Inside a C folder, users Anil. So here I have created a project. So KTK Angular app. I am just selecting it. So the project got opened. So now to just we have to create with this folder. Okay, let now we have to trust this project. Now we have created. So now to create Docker image with this project, we need Docker file. So we can create a Docker file here. Click on this plus icon, Docker file. So when you click Docker file, this Docker image will automatically, it will come with the Visual Studio Code. Click enter. So here Docker file is got created under this project. So press Ctrl I to ask code to do something. Okay, so this is Copilot. It's Copilot is enabled my Visual Studio. So you can also enable by logging into the GitHub credentials. So once Copilot is got enabled, you can just say Control I. You can click Control I. You can ask Copilot here itself. So what do you want? I can say create Docker file template for Angular application for Angular. Click enter. So Docker file is generating for Angular application. So it is using the Node.js and so package dot and npm it is installed and whatever the code is required, it's automatic Copilot is generating for us. You can click on accept. So your Docker file is ready. So now if you see here Docker Angular, whenever you are running an application, it is taking nginx is the default build server, dev server to launch your application. It will use the nginx Alpine image internally. So which port you are exposing to run the container? So container is exposing the port number 80. So let us try running this application and we will see whether we are able to run or not. So you can go to the new terminal. So you can run the application ng serve. So that will run your application, your Angular application. We'll just see your application is getting running, application is running or not. So it's just loading, it's building your application. And if you see, once you do the ng serve, you are not creating any dist folder, right? So dist folder is not yet created. If you see, I think this application it's got hosted. You can just go and see 4200, the default port it will launch. You can just click on 4200 localhost. So yes, Ketake Angular app is running. So our Angular application is running. So now next what we need to do, let us build the application. Let us build our Angular application. So uh, we need to create an image, right? So to create an image, we need the published document, published files of this Angular application. It is required. So where it is going to create, it is going to create in dist folder, right? So in dist folder where we are copying from build app dist, and it is going to the HTML, right? So what I will do, I'll just see ng build. This should build our dist folder. It should publish our Angular application to the dist folder. So it's just building our Angular application. This is the next step we need to follow. The application is building now. Now the application building is done. You can see the dist folder here now. In the dist folder, we have Ketaki Angular app, and here by default all the files it is coming in from the browser. So what I have to do in the Docker file, I need to copy. See here, I am copying all the content from the app folder, and inside the dist whatever the document all files are there, everything I am copying it to the HTML. So I don't want to copy this browser folder. I want the content only for inside this. So dist, I'll just say browser. So whatever the files are there from the browser, it will just that means all the files from the browser folder inside a dist, everything will be copied to the HTML. Okay, so let me save this file. So now dist folder is done. Now what I will do, I will create docker docker build hyphen t, the tag name we need to give. The tag name, we will give it to okay, the key new Angular app. Then dot specifies the file, the docker file in which folder it is there. So dot means the docker file where we have it, we have in under KTK Angular app folder itself. Click on enter. Now our docker image is getting built now. Okay. Okay, we got one error. Here we got some error now after building. There is a failed to compute cache and app dist browser is not found. Okay, yeah, we missed something here. The whatever the content of published content, it's available under dist. After that, we have one more folder, key hyphen angular. We have to mention that. Otherwise, it will not identify the path. Key. Let me copy from here. Copy Ketaki. So I am just giving the path. So here, dist Ketaki Angular app, then browser. So now I'll just save this file. I'll give proper path where my published files are there, and I also changed the node to the latest version. Now latest version and change this path. Now let us run the build. Try to build the Docker image again. Okay, so now Docker build is completed. You can see whether the whatever you have created an image, whether it is succeeded or not. Very important thing is you have to mention the proper path where your Angular files are there, published files are there. So now Docker images, if you type the command Docker images, it should show your newly created image. What is the name of the image you created? You have given the image name we have given as Ketaki New Angular. So if you can see Ketaki New Angular, the project is image got created with the tag latest. Let us try to run that. What is the command you will use to run the run the Docker image? Docker run, so hyphen d, so which will you which the image will run in the the container will run the background. If you are not giving hyphen d, then what happens, the process will be continuously, it will be showing in the terminal itself. So hyphen d, the let us run that container process at the backend. So hyphen d, now let us give the some port number hyphen p, and I'll give some random port number 9878. Now colon 80. Why the colon 80 we need to give? It is a container port. So 80 is a container port because why I'm saying it is a container port? See, expose 80 port number we have given in the Docker file. So that's why 80 is a container port for me. And this is my local machine. I am just mapping with our open port 9878 with the 80 port. So now Docker, now we have to give the image name. What is the image name here? The image name is nothing but repository name we need to give here. So image name for us, Ketaki New Angular is the image name. Let us enter now. See, now the container got created. This is the container ID. So it will give the container dynamically generated container name it will give. If you go and see, if you see another command Docker PS, which will display all the running containers. You see, so our container is running. What is the port number? We have given 9878 is our port number. We map it to the 80 port, and this is the container ID. If you see the container ID, it is displaying only partial container ID. It will show up to C5. It is showing. So this is our container which we have run, and you can see the same container in the Docker desktop as well. You can go to the containers. Your container should be running. See, Ketaki New Angular is our container. When you click on this, the port number, your application should be up and running. See, so 9878 port number we are given, so we are able to containerize our Angular application successfully. So we created a container as well with the Angular. So now our next step is how you can create a pod with this with this Angular containerized application. So to do that, first we need to push our image to Docker repository. Where is our Docker repository? Our private repository. We can say Docker Hub. So Docker Hub is our private repository. So you can go to the Docker Hub portal, Docker Hub URL. You can just log into the Docker Hub. If you don't have an account, you can create one Docker Hub account with your Gmail account. So just for practice, so I already logged into the Docker Hub. So this is my Docker repository. Anil Kamkol, this Docker repository path. So here what I will do, I will create my new repository. For what? For my Angular application. So I can create a new repository in my private registry. So what is the name of the repository I will give? So this is my Angular repository name. I'll give Ketaki Angular is my repository name. Let me create this. So now my repository is created. So we need to push our Docker Angular image to our this repository. How do you push that? So before pushing, we need to tag that image to our actual repository name. What is our repository name? So this is our repository name. So there are few steps we need to follow. So to do that, to if you want to push to from Angular application, if you want to push it to the Docker Hub, first you need to do the Docker login. So Docker login, this is the command you need to use. Docker login hyphen username you need to give. So whatever your email ID, test@gmail.com. So this is your user ID, and hyphen password you need to give. So test some password you can provide it. So that will give you that should be able to log in. See, here I have given some wrong username and password. So that is why it is saying incorrect username and password. So by default your Docker, it will be connected to the Docker Hub. So it is trying to, if you are not mentioning any registries, other example JFrog and all. So that is why it is default, it is considering it as a Docker Hub. So here it is, you, as you have given the wrong username and password, it is not it is unable to log in. If you give the proper username and password, it will be able, you should be able to log in. Once you logged into the Docker Hub from the Visual Studio Code. Now let us tag it. There are few steps you have to follow it. First you need to Docker login. After that you can build you can build your Docker Angular application with this command docker build, and you can tag this. We have already done. So Docker login also completed. Now we have to tag it with our repository name. So what is that? So Docker tag, what is our image name here? So new Angular is our image. Ketaki new Angular is our image name. So give that image name. So if you are not giving anything here, it will consider it as a latest image. Now what is my repository URL? What is repository URL which we created, Docker Hub repository? You can copy that repository path here. So this is my repository path. Copy this, and if you're not mentioning any tag, it will consider it as a latest. So I am not mentioning any tag for now. So let us tag this. So now tagging is completed. Now we can directly push our image. Docker push, it will go to the repository. So what is the command you need to use to push your Docker Angular application? So you can just say repository URL itself. So you can just say Docker push. So I want to push in this repository. Enter. So this should, you should be able to push your Angular application to your Docker Hub repository. So now go and refresh your Docker Hub portal. You should be able to see the image in the private repository. So which you create already, which we created just now. So you see, so latest tag it came, right? So this is how we have to push our image to the Docker Hub repository. So here I have given tag as latest, so hence it is taking as a just latest tag. If you can go to our all repositories, here whatever we created Ketaki Angular, we just created 1 minute ago. So here you should be able to see the image. If you want to create some other versions of your image, so point 1, point 2, like that version numbers, still you can give the version number. So that it should be, you should be able to create with the new versions number, you should be able to push. So why you are unable to push here? The tag does not exist, so you have to give the first, you need to tag it. So point 2. So once the tag is done, you should be able to push that image to the your private repository. So layer already exists, but let us see if it is not created. You can just create new tag and you should be able to push it. So why it is unable to push means there is no changes. So that is why it is not taking, but it has already created. If it is point 2 version, whatever you created, so here you are given the message a layer already exists. That's because we have not done any changes to our Docker file. So that's why it is shown here this message. But point 2 version also you should be able to see in the Docker Hub. Now your Angular application is containerized. So till this point your Angular application is containerized. Now the next step is we need to create a pod with this Angular. So how to create the pod? You can just click on the plus, you can just create one pod.yaml file. So this is for our Kubernetes YAML file. So this is our YAML file. I'll just press Ctrl I. I'll just ask to the copilot to give me the pod template. Pod template. So it should just give the pod template. So I'll just accept it. So this is the pod template. You can see API version is v1 and kind. What is the kind? What type of the file? This is a pod file, and metadata example pod. I can say any Angular pod. Then I will give the same label name here. Say label name and container. So what is the container name we need to give here? So you can, what container name we need to give? The container image. It is not an nginx latest, right? So here I need to pull from the Docker Hub. What is the path you will give for Docker Hub? I will take the point 2 version only. So here you can say Docker, you can give this path here. Instead of nginx, I'll give my repository path point to, and the port I will give the 80 port, right? So now it will take this container and it will create a pod. What is this pod? Pod is an extra layer. It's an extra layer on top of the container. So let us try to apply this. How you will apply? Let me control C. So now I have to create a pod. So before that, kubectl, sorry, I'm typing here. Okay, kubectl get pods. Do we have any running pods here? So pod is an a one extra layer on top of container, because directly container you can't push it to the Kubernetes. You have to layer it with the pod and then we need to hand over it to the Kubernetes. So now how to apply it? Kubectl apply hyphen f, then what is the file name? pod.yaml is our file name. So now I am applying the changes pod. This is the command we need to use, kubectl apply and the file name pod.yaml. When I click enter, now you see pod is got created. But what pod? We'll just see what is the pod name it got created. Pods, if you see, Angular pod. From where we have mentioned this Angular pod, if you see the name. So this is the name, this one. You see this first one you can ignore. This is the earlier 4 hours before which we have created, but 8 seconds before, if you see, this is a running pod which we created. Ketaki Angular pod, right? So Ketaki Angular pod, if you see the metadata information, it is just giving Ketaki Angular pod. So what is the container name? It has taken example container name. So which is the image? This image. So what we did, on top of this image we created a container, on top of this container we created a pod. So the next step is we need to create one more layer as a deployment, and we have to hand over it to the Kubernetes. That will take the creating a rollbacks and updates. So whatever the functionality of the Kubernetes, that will be taken care from our cluster. So that's all. We are able to create a pod from the Angular application. So if you have any doubts, you can feel free to post it in the comment section. In the next session, we will see the controllers of the Kubernetes. Thank you.